Um, Let me ask you this, and maybe that will answer the question of lessons learned. If you were to, if you had all these learnings and you were to decide on what the MVP is, both in terms of hardware, in terms of software, in terms of middleware, in terms of partnerships, in terms of positioning, what would you write? Like if you were to write one pager that just had, we're going to do this on the hardware side, we're going to do this on the software side, we're going to engage in these business development activities, and then this will be MVP, and then we will launch at this price point, given that you had to do all those things, which is I think a subset of what you did. If you can just brainstorm with me, what would that be like? Like, let's start with the hardware. Obviously, I think there are a couple of things
Yeah.
you could have done without. Hmm.
Yeah, as minimal as possible is the when it comes
Hmm.
to hardware, the minimum functionality that you need, and nothing else. And then the other thing is to look at, what are you uh, we were building for, some people build for cost, some people build for quality. We were built for get out the door as fast as possible. And looking back, I don't think that was the wrong approach. I think
Hmm.
that was something, a good lesson learned.
Yep.
That in fact there would be
Get
other
something
things.
else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would actually be something that we would do. If we were really focusing on that more, we would do many more things in order to eliminate. Like, we'd have one speaker, we'd have a power supply that was
Mhm.
um, that was
Yeah, it's a
different.
good pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was one thing. If you need to ship it in 2 months, like what would you need to eliminate, or what could you build off the shelf as much as possible? Components could you use to do that off the shelf, just one level down from like um, from taking an existing device on the market
Mhm.
and putting a
Mhm.
wrapper around it. So that's kind of one thing is, use as much off the shelf components as you can. Um, don't unless your startup is design on some deep technology. Don't build your own. Um, don't go anything under firmware that requires you to. In fact, if you avoid having to touch firmware, the more you can avoid touching firmware, the better, because firmware is difficult to program. Not many people have the skills to do that, and
What was the mix
manufacturers.
of your
Yeah.
team? Because so were you all three engineers or?
So we were all, I mean, all three of us have engineering backgrounds. There was one who was more, who actually did the engineering. I mean, I think you've met him too.
Of course, yeah.
He's a real brain, but he had led the engineering effort, and we brought in a bunch of developers, firmware developers, and application layer developers
Hmm.
with us. But firmware was very difficult. Firmware was the most costly, most
Yeah.
difficult thing to work on. So if you could avoid touching firmware, that's the kind of the biggest thing with hardware.
Do you think that if one of you guys was a non-engineer at all, um, they love it technology, but they were really business guys, like say Steve Jobs, who just was not an engineer, and to the point where Steve Wozniak was like, "What do you do?" Remember that? Like, what are you doing, right? Because they didn't understand the function of a product person. If you had
Uh-huh.
like a pure product person who was like, "This thing is a new thing," we just have a smattering of information about what people want. These are enthusiasts. Let's get it out as soon as possible so we can see what the mainstream wants. And they just don't understand. They don't care about they don't care about, hey, this is exciting. Let's do some firmware stuff because it's hard or it's intellectually challenging. That's how. I mean, I'm an engineer, right? I had to evolve, not evolve. I had to sort of shift and pivot from being an engineer to a product, and I understand the mind of the engineer. Sometimes it surfaces in me, and I have to suppress it. Like, we love solving problems, and the harder the problem, the more excited we get, right? Which is dangerous when you're trying to get the product out. So what do you think, if one of you guys was sort of an idiot when it came to engineering, would that have helped, you think?
Um, I think it was already a bit strained, even to figure things out, because as my background is aerospace engineering, not anything
That's
to do with
engineering, so you have
yeah,
engineering in mind, right?
yeah,
So you love problems.
but I've been on the business side
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you're not.
for my.
You're a very business savvy person,
I
but
don't
your
say I
mind
was
is
savvy.
no, you're
Not
savvy.
yeah,
But the thing
yeah.
is, we really love solving problems of a certain type. Yeah,
At some point, what I would say is at some point, like right at the beginning, it would be difficult, but if there was any, if we were able to make it past a few steps,
yeah,
absolutely, to be able to come in and you know overturn, like just look at the kind of where's the thing going to get mass appeal, like what's the experience, like those are the I think that that type of view would have been very helpful.
mm, mm.
And I think just with our setup, it might have been difficult to convince us from the outset that we would need to focus because we have no clue how to build it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm kind of waffling now.
No, that's
Maybe
fine. That's fine.
maybe it would be helpful. Yeah.
How about the software side? So that's the hardware side. How about the software side? What could you have eliminated in terms of software, both in terms of core as well as in terms of application level?
So I think we've probably talked about this in the past, and I think people who are probably listening to this have heard have thought like, what is the killer app when it comes to voice, right? And there's a few, having played with voice devices now for many years, there's a few simple use cases. One of them, the most magical experience, again, this is opinion, but is music. Being
Hmm.
able to ask for a song and have it play, but almost by the time you finish saying it, is a qualitatively different experience than accessing music in any other way.
Hmm.
Whether you're looking on your device or you're looking at on the doing going Spotify on the app on your computer or other things, it's different when the speed from thought to hearing music is something that is incredible. So that's kind of one application that I would say we should probably go hard on. The second one, there's a very kind of short list of questions that people or applications that people need that are very useful. Things that I still use every day when it comes to my voice device: timers, time, weather, and if we're going to start MVP, that's what we're doing. Like, don't worry about knowing the population. We had one user who like wrote us a very like user client who wrote us a very angry email.
Scaling. Mm.
Yeah, he basically wrote us. He said, my wife asked the age of Kevin Costner, and it said at the time Kevin Costner was 58 and he's 59. This thing is a piece of garbage. Like, and I'm like, like a guy.
Yeah.
So the expectations are, of course, you go with a long tail that should know everything, but I think you
Hmm.
can set expectations. So that would be on the software side. What I would do
Yeah.
differently
What if
is,
you had framed it as it's not a computer. It is version one of something that will allow you to do things, and the only things it can do now are alarms, right? Because it turned out to be like no, alarms for me. I use it quite a bit for during the day. Like I have it like 6 times says drink water, because
Mhm.
otherwise I forget, right? So whenever it says that, so I drink a cup of water, and I have become a lot more hydrated. So, so one is alarms. Number two, I use it a lot for, believe it or not, calculating things like what's the 17.5 plus this and that, right? I don't think that would have been a part of the MVP. But like you're saying, right? Time. If you were doing those three, four things and launched it and framed it, the framing is so important, right? That's all it does. And then in version two, we'll be able to do other things as we learn. Do you think? Do you think it have gotten? First of all, do you think you have gotten the excitement level that it did at the very beginning when you framed it the way you did? Because that's also part of the equation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So interesting. I don't think so. Like
Yeah.
I think I think the fact that the reason why it got so much interest is because we said it was going to be a Star Trek computer. Like, this is the Star Trek computer doesn't limit itself to only telling the time and doing timers. So that's the that you
What if
don't
you
get
had framed it as yeah, it is, but it is. This is the very first generation, and it can do only three things,
Yeah, so
right?
it would have. I probably would have said this. Would have staged the features like this
Right.
is what
Right.
this
Yeah.
year, this year, this year. And I mean, we had talked about roadmaps and what we were
Yeah.
planning on doing in the future, and
Yeah.
but it would have been much much more conservative the roadmap, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that would have
And I
made
think
it.
the backers would probably have, as long as they knew they were on a path, on a journey towards something big. That's what they love. These backers, they love to be part
Yep.
of something, right? And guys, help us. We're gonna go from here to there. Again, this is just
Yeah.
speculation. We never know in
I
the
think
time. Yeah.
the equivalent is kind of like you look at Tesla, right? So people who have a Tesla, they might not have purchased the autonomous driving feature, but they're kind
Mm,
of
mm,
ambitious that one day they'll wake up and they'll go into their car and they'll say, "Oh, full
mm,
driving mode is available now," and just
mm-hmm,
press this button and now you can drive.
mm-hmm.
And so the capability is
Yeah.
there, but
Yep.
it's just not enabled yet. So that type of
Mm,
maybe a lesson learned from the software side is
mm.
staging it out and keeping the carrot dangling in front would be buys a lot more patience, I think. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm hopping on all this because I still see a lot of very enthusiastic young folks making, these avoidable mistakes. And I think this project. Well, let me ask you this: the project itself, when it was in full throttle mode, how much time was it taking? Was it like you go to you do your job and then you do this and then you sleep for 2 hours, or what
yeah,
was it?
it was very intensive. So we had a lot of we didn't leave our jobs until we had funding to cover our salaries basically.
Hmm.
So that was part of the we weren't young. We were still I think in our 30s. So it wasn't we had some responsibilities. So we had to wait on that. But yeah, that was it was full time. One of our probably, I mean, one of our founders was the first one to kind of jump aboard and say, "I got to do this full time." That was the and we tried to resist him because we were very concerned about risk, personal risk, and so
Hmm.
that was a difficult
Yeah.
move to
And so
make.
you did get funding from folks at some point.
Yeah, so we ended up closing a an angel round. So as much as I say about angels, we did end up closing a significant one that allowed us to deliver all of the UBs and
Hmm.
also complete the technology. And then it was kind of figuring out what we were going to do after that, and it took us a long path.
And how did you guys convince the angel to? Is this just finding the right person or the right group or the right organization that helped you, or what was the clincher? Or just there was traction? Just wanna curious.
It was a combination of many things, and some of them just a lot of luck.
Hmm.
In fact, I think it was at the time when we met for the first time.
Hmm.
With that I had a conversation right, or actually probably within a day of meeting you for the first time, to someone who introduced us to our kind of our lead angel.
So I brought you good luck, right?
Yes, exactly.
Go on, go on.
uh, and we went up meeting a lead angel, and that person ended up bringing in other angel investors, and it was kind of a cohort. They were all people who had worked together, who had exited a
Hmm.
company, and so they were all looking to place their windfall a little bit. So
Hmm.
it was kind of the right timing. So a combination of
Yeah,
connections and luck,
yeah.
and
So what
um,
if you were to recommend, say, here a young person with ambition, if you want to raise, here's in general terms the strategy. It's just
yeah,
like not knocking on lots of doors. What is it?
yeah.
What would you say?
It's definitely sharing your idea, going even to people like if we're uncomfortable. Some of us are still uncomfortable talking to reaching out to people who we might not have spoken to in a long time, or might think, why would they be interested in this? But yeah, it is definitely reaching out to many people that and asking them for advice on who they should talk to, even if yeah. So the worst they can say is no. Like
Yeah,
and then eventually someone might introduce you into someone, but you have to it's going with a very kind of gracious demeanor, not trying to kind of close everyone you talk to, um, and so that's kind of my probably my advice would be like,
yeah,
be great, take advice from everyone, be gracious,
yeah.
and
And people do like to give advice,
yeah,
and some people actually, they give advice, and they start getting convinced that this is something, then they may jump in. So yeah, I totally agree. Have as many conversations as possible. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, my first meeting with our someone, the person who turned out to be our lead angel, said like, this is a horrible idea and it won't work. And then
And then how did they?
they came around to it eventually. I
They
guess
thought some more. Yeah,
they
it
were
takes
thinking
time
more about
sometimes,
our
especially
yeah,
novel things, right? This is totally novel. So they're like, what? Why?
yeah.
Why would I do this? It's like, why would I use my finger to swipe things when I can use a stylus?
Exactly.
Right.
This typewriter technology is, it'll never stick, this typewriter
Yeah.
thing.
What? And then it's like, where's the? Why did you jumble up the letters? Um, Let me ask you, and tell me if you're comfortable talking about it. Is you guys had a conversation with Amazon, and there was a whole article written about it, I don't know, a few months ago.
Yes.
Um, and so, to the extent that you want to talk about it, tell me.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's public,
This
public
is all
knowledge.
public,
Yeah.
public published information.
So, we were after our Kickstarter campaign, we were looking for funding, and
Hmm.
we were reaching out to anyone and everyone, and it was one of the places that we reached out to was Amazon, um, and we ended up having a few meetings with Amazon, and I'll say in this regard, at least from everything Amazon did, they, from a legal perspective, they had covered themselves. So there was we didn't make any claims that there was something illegal that was going on, but we ended up having some meetings with Amazon, meeting with some high level people. And then those conversations ended, and we thought, that's it. We're I guess they're not interested, and they're working on something. And then actually, the Amazon Dash Prime came out,
Hmm.
and it was
Hmm.
this like looked like a wand that you could talk to. It's
Hmm.
normally used for scanning barcodes. We
Hmm.
thought, oh, that's what it was. That's what they were, what
Hmm.
they were building, and we figured, okay. But we'd actually. Were very enthusiastic, and had talked about all of the different potential applications that Ubi could have if it was
Hmm.
mixed in with an Amazon environment. Um, but we were hopeful that maybe we wouldn't have to go through the whole manufacturing process and fulfillment of Kickstarter. We could just be acquired back then. So that was kind
Hmm.
of our naive thoughts at the time when meeting with large. But I mean, we had met with Google as well, so I'm not. We'd met
Hmm.
with a number of I mean, Samsung. We've talked to Apple. Like we had. It was not. Probably most conversations with Amazon, but they weren't the only conversations that we had had. So.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. I think that's probably because, as you know, Amazon is very much into the MVP mentality, and I think they were trying to see. I think the reason they were interested is because they saw the traction that you're getting from the early adopters, right?
Mhm.
Um, uh, anyway, so I don't want to hop too much on that thing, but let me ask you. Well, the hour has already passed. That's crazy, right? I'm having so much fun here. Let me ask you this: the Echo launched in November 2014. We are closing in November 2021, so that's 7 years. That's a long time in tech.
Mhm.
Do you think that the Echo and Google Home and all these smart speakers, they've made progress? Let's just talk about technological in terms of penetration. I think they've done a good job. Like people are adopting this and all that. But in terms of like progress, do you think they have done a good job?
Um, so I think like the things that are on the surface, I think the things on the surface I think have stopped changing significantly for a couple of years now.
Like
At
what?
least in terms of like functionality. So there's the innovation that from the consumer side on these devices, I don't think is has the real innovation that's coming hasn't bubbled through yet. I mean, we probably 3 years ago we've seen, all of the kind of the cool the skills and the actions and kind of all the really exciting stuff is that we would normally see in terms of voice interaction is, you know, from Google, Amazon, I feel has, you know, got to a certain point there, and now all of the kind of the innovations are happening underneath the surface for, you know, better prediction, better speech recognition, you know, being able to branch out to cheaper devices. Being able to understand, you know, understand intents better, being able to predict what someone might do, like all those are kind of where the innovation is happening. I think the next wave of stuff that you know is probably you know going to end up being, you know, end up being much more interesting in terms of knowing more about us, than the devices seem to express today. So
Yeah.
might yeah. So I'm like kind of I feel like there's been a plateau in terms of like interesting, you know, interesting applications for it, but I think that there's going to be another surge over the next few years of really cool kind of mind melding things that we might see coming out of it. Um, I could mention them. I don't know if this is going
Yeah.
to be this weird predictions, but it might be things like, uh, first of all, super realistic speech synthesis. Like right now, there's still you still know it's Alexa, but you know it might seem, um, so realistic you wouldn't be able to kind of tell the difference between whether it's someone speaking or not. That's going to come from, you know, we saw with Google Duplex, they also kind of had that type of, with all of the weird, you know, hms and haws that come out of the voice. I think we're going to start being able to interact with our own voice even, you know, that could be kind of interesting application that comes out of it. There might be more prompts, that say, hey, by the way, and then something that's really useful to you, like not, hey, if you want to listen on repeat, just say repeat the song. No, like something actually, you know, actually very very helpful, could come out, and there could be, you know, more understanding of health, more understanding of stress, and the ability to tailor language responses based on those cues, which instead of having kind of so more natural language generation to meet the interaction, to get to some type of better outcome of the interaction. So I think those are probably some things that we're going to see bubble out, and kind of be the next breakthrough, for interaction with these devices.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. For me, I think what is most disappointing is that uh, that that these both the Echo and Google are still conversationally, conversational simpletons, right? Meaning they don't know when you have finished talking, for example, right? Or if you hesitate, they think you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Which really is, I think, for me, is the biggest problem, really, right? Because you have to. It's a stressful experience to talk these things because you have to prepare your mind to say what you want, which is not the way we do things when we talk to each other, right?
Yes.
I have an idea, you know that I have finished talking. You see, you didn't interrupt me, right? You didn't say, okay, see, there's a pause here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't finish my sentence. I'm giving you the right intonations, right? And so that I think is a big barrier, and the fact that they have done almost, I wouldn't say zero, but near zero progress for 70 years, when it's in fact the biggest hurdle. I think making the speech recognition better, is marginal because it's good enough. People are not asking very complicated things. And when they do want to ask about a song, they might forget for a couple of seconds exactly what the song is, or
Mm-hmm.
they might be interrupted by something and they haven't finished. And the thing is, like, I didn't understand that, or worse, it gives you the best that it can do with a partial thing, which is usually very wrong, right? And I have lots of examples of those that I recorded where it was totally off, completely off, right? Um, so I think that for me, if they take care of that, being able to build conversations that are delightful becomes a possibility, right? Because my gosh, I'm talking to it, and it's very smart in that way. It knows I'm not done, right? And now it knows that I'm done because I said la da da, and then okay, and then so what do you think? You see, I finished my turn. I said, what do you think?
Yeah. So yeah, I think that like I don't think the speech, like the tonality or speech has to change from there from the device side. But if there's a better understanding of you and your like what you're trying to get after, and when you're finished speaking, and if you want to make additional points, that's definitely going to enhance the experience. Even maybe even like, hey, by the way, like wake up from something, waving, making eye contact and waving, to get the attention of the device, as opposed to actually having to Alexa, or something,
Yeah, yeah. Or
it's
while you're
yeah.
talking to it, there's another one is where I'm talking to you, right? And I have to say, let's say you're the speaker, right? You're the smart speaker, and then so you're talking, and I want you to stop talking, and I have to say, Leor. Okay, and then you stop, right? Hey, Leor, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you're talking to a person, and then they talk, and only if you say, hey, Leor, they'll stop. You can't just say, hang on one second, wait a minute, and they would
Yeah,
stop,
or
right?
it's like waving.
Okay, listen, and then they stop, right? So having to say the name every time is just unnatural. And again, that is not the biggest deal. I'll go back to the first one. That's the biggest deal because it creates people will only use it for short, right, things because it's just unpleasant to be
Mhm.
interrupted and not heard. And that is really a big problem with the older population. Where I have a couple of projects with the ARP Foundation where they love the thing, they want to use it, but they don't want to feel dumb because
Mhm.
they always blame themselves, right? They're like, oh, I'm not good at using technology,
Mhm.
as opposed to this technology is not what it should be, right? Anyway, um, okay, I'll tell you what. Um, we could talk for multiple hours, but we're not going to do that because
Okay.
you have a Sunday to take care of, the rest of Sunday. Um, but let me finish with this. So you right now you're in Israel. You were you are you a Canadian guy? Where's your let's say your where did you grow up? You grew up in
Yeah,
Canada?
I grew up in Canada. I grew up in Ottawa,
In Ottawa.
Canada's
Okay.
capital, and yeah, and um, it was a quiet, quiet place to grow up. Very picturesque. Yeah, it was a good quiet place.
To
But
to uh, to grow up and then Toronto was sort of your base
yeah,
later on.
then I
Mhm.
moved to Toronto. Yeah, I had my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, and we moved to Toronto. And now, Ottawa is interesting. Ottawa has now become like this, Silicon Valley North, they
Really?
call it. Yeah, but
Hmm.
basically, a lot of Nortel used to be based out of
Hmm.
Ottawa, and there was all sorts of like other startups that are there, which is Shopify is now there. So now it's really big, but at the time there wasn't that there wasn't that kind of big big movement. So
Wonderful, Leor Grebler. Thank you so much for spending part of your Sunday with me. I really appreciate it. Um, you're a very interesting person. You're clearly an innovator uh, through and through. And so I have a lot of respect for you and the team and what you've done. I think folks need to go and learn their history, their the voice first people. Where can people find out more about what you write about and what you do and so on?
so I think it's medium.com/@Grebler. I think is where I publish most of my stuff there. So that's where I put my thoughts on.
Yeah, please
Yeah.
go and read. And you write on a regular basis, right? So
I try
yeah,
to. It's been a
yeah,
while. It's been more difficult recently, but I'm trying to get back into it. So I have lots of thoughts on there, so people can dig into them.
and they're all good thoughts. Thank you very much, Leor. It was a
Thanks.
pleasure.
It has been. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Take care.
Take care.